Hello, welcome along. We are back in Microsoft Flight Simulator. Hope you guys are doing well. And today's video is going to be another tutorial in my series for the PMDG 737-800. And this follows on from my last tutorial where we discussed planning an ILS approach, and I will put a link up for that at the end of this video. But today we're going to be discussing how we set up and configure the plane for an RNAV approach. So what are the differences between an RNAV and ILS approach? Well, basically the ILS is a precision approach which uses a radio beam located on the airfield itself to guide the plane in, and an RNAV is a non-precision approach which uses the GPS systems within the aircraft to guide the plane down safely. So here we are in the flight deck. We are currently about 20 miles from our approach into Corfu in Greece. And if we take a quick look at Navigraph, you can see it's a fairly tasty approach into Corfu. We are on the PTAS to Sierra Star, which swings right around the edge of Corfu and then turns sharply left into runway 34. And what does that look like on the charts? Well, we start our descent at PTAS flight level 110 on a course of 115 degrees before turning right onto Delta 18 Kilo Romeo Kilo, and then following the Delta 16 arc all the way down to BedX, where we need to be at flight level 400. We then make our left turn onto a course of 256 degrees, where we will pick up the Kirkira VOR. And if we take a look in a little more detail, we can see there at BedX we have a hold if we need to lose any altitude, but essentially we're straight in on Kilo Romeo 602 before our final left turn on a course of 340. And what we need to do first of all is tune in our VOR. So down to the nav radio, and we're going to tune that to 114.7 for the Kirkira VOR. And if we've done that correctly, we should get a little readout in the bottom of the nav display there telling us we've tuned it in correctly. We'll get the 3-letter identifier code just to confirm that. And that's also our final course of 340 added. Good. And let's also bring our heading bug round to our current heading of 149 degrees. Okay. Right, so as we can see, we're now approaching our top of descent marker at PTAS. So I'm going to put in our first altitude constraint of 4,000 feet for our waypoint at BedX. So let's just drop that in at 4,000. Okay. So basically, as we pass over the top of descent, the aircraft should start descending automatically as we're in VNAV mode, so that should all be good. And one really important thing we do need to double check for an RNAV approach is the required navigation performance, which is here on the left of the FMC. And basically the number on the left is the required and the number on the right is the actual. So as long as that number on the right is lower than the number on the left, we're good to proceed with the RNAV approach. So that all looks good. Now I am going to attempt to descend the plane all the way down through our waypoints, just using VNAV and LNAV if possible. If we need to tweak anything along the way, I might have to hop into vertical speed mode, but the plan is to use VNAV all the way down. Okay, so the next thing we need to add is our approach ref, which is our speed and flaps for landing. So if we hit that there, it'll drop it in the scratch pad, which is 142 knots at 40 degrees. That looks good, and once we've done that correctly, we should get confirmation in the bottom left of the PFD there, so that all looks fine. Okay, so next is our minimums. So get the charts back up, and if we scroll down to the bottom, the minimums for our RNAV approach into Corfu is 770. So just get rid of those a second. We go back up to the Barrow, and we scroll that right across, which is going to take ages because it's quite high, 770 feet, and just keep that scrolling all the way up to 770. Look at that, bang on. Okay, so that's the minimums, and then we just need to double check our QNH, which is standard pressure 29902, which all looks good. And as we can see, the plane is descending quite nicely now. Okay, so next I'm going to pop some fixed rings around our runway. If we quickly open the chart, if you look at the centre band there, it gives you some recommended altitudes and distances from the runway. So I'm going to put a fixed ring at 5 miles, so we know roughly we need to be at 1600 feet when we hit that. So let's just pop in our runway, 3, 4, and yes, the first fixed ring at 5 miles. And again, that's a little visual for me, which will be flaps 15 and gear down. So once I pass over that, I need to be set. And I also add one at 10 miles just so I know how far I am from the runway at all times. So there we go. Both fixed rings now appear on our nav display, so that's all worked nicely. Right, so time for a little break. I think we'll have a look at some of this fantastic scenery. Greece looking absolutely stunning today. In fact, let's hop outside and have a proper look around. And we can just see the airfield coming into view. And that's definitely my favourite camera angle. Bit of engine and wing, absolute classic. Just look at this. Not a cloud in the sky. And I've actually got a little fun fact about this Sunwing livery that we are in today. I have been on this actual aircraft, same registration number, everything. Basically, I went on holiday in the summer from Birmingham to Kos, and TUI were operating this plane for some weird reason. So yeah, I went on a TUI UK holiday on a Canadian plane with French cabin announcements to Greece, which was lovely. Just thought I'd share that with you. I thought it was quite interesting. But anyway, that's enough about my holidays. Let's continue with our flight into Corfu. As you can see now, the airfield really clear below us, so we haven't got too much further to go. Okay, so let's carry on monitoring our descent. We're currently at 7,500 feet, so only what 3,500 feet to go until our first constraint at BEDX. And as you can see, we're now starting to head right out over the Aegean Sea, just before we make our left turn back towards Corfu, ready for our final approach. And if we take a look at our nav display, we can see the green banana just coming into view. That means the plane's happy that it can make our descent in time for our constraint at BEDX. So I'm pretty happy with our VNAV descent profile, so we can start configuring a few things for our landing. Firstly, I need to set our auto brake, and we'll be setting that to 2 for today. And moving overhead, let's set our runway turn off lights on, and engine starter modes to continuous. And let's just double check the seat belts are on, that's good, and we'll give the cabin crew a little dong. Okay. So we can see we're going to be at 4,000 feet by BEDX, so that's good. We'll now dial in our next constraint, which was 2,900 feet. And another quick check out the window just to see if Corfu is still there. Yep, no, we're good. In fact, let's have a look outside. Beautiful. Okay, we are just starting our turn in left now, ever so gradually. So if we have a quick look at the charts, and let's brief our missed approach. At but not before runway 34, turn right max 185 knots, direct to Kokera 700, then via 701, 702 and 703, proceed to BedX, climb to 4,000 feet and join hold. And one other thing to bear in mind is our final approach track is 5 degrees off runway centerline, and that is our missed approach briefed. So moving on to our airfield charts, let's just get in our mind where we think we're going to need to vacate. It looks like it's going to be Alpha 2. I don't think we'll make Alpha 1, so yeah, vacate Alpha 2 and taxi straight onto the apron. Okay, so back to the PFD and our nav display just to monitor things. We've now also made our next constraint of 2,900 feet, so we can shortly start thinking about dialing in our final altitude before making our left turn onto our final approach. And as we make our turn, we can just see our fix ring, which gives us the indicator that we've got 10 miles until we land. And let's dial in our final constraint of 1,700 feet. And there we go, the engines have spooled up, we're just beginning to turn in now. And I'm just going to begin by winding the speed back to 220 knots. And let's add our first stage of flaps, flaps 1. And speed back to 192. And flaps 2, speed 185, and flaps 5, speed back to 171. Aircraft's trimming like mad. And I'm going to add our final altitude of 1,000 feet into the window. Just time for another quick look-see out the window. Look at this. This is why I love this simulator. Just look at this. Incredible. And if we look dead ahead, we can now see the runway in front of us. And flaps 10, and let's bring our head and bug round to our final course of 340 degrees, and gear down, and speed 162, and flaps 15. And one last check of our approach ref, which was flaps 40 at 142 knots. So we'll wind it back to 149 and flaps 25. And my final fix ring shows us we are just about 5 miles from the airfield. So let's add our final approach speed of 142 knots and flaps 30. and our final stage of flaps 40. Okay, that is the aircraft pretty much configured for landing. All I need to do now is wait till we get to around about 1,000 feet, then I can switch off the auto thrust, disengage the autopilot, and we can hand fly the landing. And that is auto thrust off and autopilot disengaged. Right, let's see if we can land this thing. Bearing in mind as well what we discussed earlier, we've got that 5-degree offset on the runway, so I just need to make a few adjustments as I'm coming in. I'll just begin turning in left a bit now, just so we can come in nice and square with the end of the runway. And all the time just trying to keep it as slow and steady as we can, just try and maintain that 3-degree glide slope.
Approaching minimums.
Okay, that's our minimum, so everything's looking good to proceed.
Minimums.
Really is a fantastic approach into Corfu, isn't it? Just stunning. Just need to pull back a little on the throttle.
400. 300. 200. 100. 50. 30. 20.
And idle throttles, and that's a bit of a float, and we are down just in the touchdown zone. Full reversers, and let's hug that centre line, hoping that auto brake 2 was enough. I think we're going to be okay. Okay, welcome to Corfu, guys. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial and you can take something into your own RNAV approaches. If you did, give it a like, subscribe, and I will catch you in the next video. Thanks very much for watching. Bye bye.